I'm here in front of the entrance of RAF Akrotiri, one of two British military bases on Cyprus, where last night, just a few minutes after midnight, a Shahed-type drone struck the base. Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulidis confirmed the strike, saying that only minor damage, material damage, was caused. One local official said he was briefed by British officials saying that a hangar next to the runway of the base was struck, or at least targeted. It's unclear actually where the drone took off from, but authorities haven't said any more about the origins of this drone.
Τα οποία και στο παρελθόν χρησιμοποιήθηκαν πάρα πολλές φορές σε υποστηρικτικές, όπως είπαν ήδη οι Άγγλοι, επιχειρήσεις εδώ στην περιοχή μας, στην γειτονιά μας. Οι πληροφορίες εδώ και πολλούς μήνες έκαναν λόγο για την παρουσία και
Of course, the strike last night caused great consternation amongst locals. There's a community right next to the base called Akrotiri, and local authorities have warned people if they choose to evacuate, they have places where they could stay.
So, James Cartledge, we heard last night that RAF Akrotiri and Cyprus was targeted by a drone attack. How concerned are you by those reports?
Obviously concerned. I mean, this is we're talking about a significant number of UK personnel, and our priority in this situation has to be the safety of our service personnel and all UK citizens in the region. So obviously it's concerning, as I understand, 2 drones, one of which was intercepted. And I think it underlines that, you know, we need to now see clear leadership from the Prime Minister. He's sort of been flaky. Does he support it or not? He's changed permission in terms of using air bases. We need clear, strong leadership because it's a very serious situation which is clearly escalating. We need to be ensuring we have the capability in the region to defend our bases, and I think we need to be strong in supporting our close allies, the United States, in this situation.
And on those Iranian strikes, they've been quite haphazard, doesn't really feel to be a target, they feel quite clumsy. What do you think the purpose of those strikes are?
Well, it's certainly an important point, the way that they have, as the Secretary of State for Defence, to be fair, himself said, lashed out, and without sort of wanton abandon, you might say. Feels uncoordinated, designed to cause maximum discomfort in the sense of hitting lots of countries. But militarily, I'm not sure how wise that is. I think what it shows is why Iran is such a nefarious threat. You know, a country that's backed terrorist attacks in this country, that supplied missiles to the Houthis so they could sink ships in the Red Sea, including trying to sink our own Royal Naval ship. Has supported all kinds of terrorist proxies and, of course, trying to develop a nuclear weapon, having killed thousands of their own people. For me, that's a country that we don't want to get their hands on a nuclear weapon. So we support the action that's taking place, but it has consequences and has risks, and we need to see strong leadership right now.
You say you support the action being taking place. Obviously, we weren't involved in the initial operation, the joint one by US and Israel. Do you think it was right that Britain wasn't involved in that?
Well, the question at the time from the US was permission to use the air bases. I don't believe there was discussion about us acting in an offensive fashion. And we think that, you know, I've said previously, had we been in government, we would have granted that permission because we feel that Iran having a nuclear bomb is a threat to us and our allies, and therefore it's in our interest. So if they'd asked us as a close ally, we would have granted that permission. The Prime Minister has now done so, having previously not done so. It's yet another U-turn. We need strong leadership at this serious time for the globe.
So you would have granted permission to use the air bases but not participated in offensive action?
Well, there's been no real discussion of that. Clearly, but there's defensive action now, which is necessary. Our planes in the air defending our bases and our allies, etc. But when countries like Australia, Canada have supported this, I don't think anyone's assumed they will get involved militarily. And all I'm saying is, if you ask me the straight question, do I think the US ultimately is doing the right thing? I'd much rather Iran didn't have a nuclear weapons program, and given they're the ones who've been having the negotiations, if they've come to the conclusion Iran's not interested in giving it up, they've concluded force is the only way, well then that is ultimately in our interest.
And what about the legality of the operation? Obviously Donald Trump hasn't gone through Congress, he hasn't gone to the UN. Do you think this is legal or illegal? What do you think?
Well, I'm not an international lawyer, and I'm not going to comment on the US Constitutional Commission. That's a matter for US politicians. What I feel is this is ultimately about self-defense, because, you know, when you have something like a nuclear weapons program, at what point do you determine that it's the right chance to act? At the end of the day, and we weren't in the negotiations, but if it's the case, the US has been negotiating with Iran and judged that they're not serious, they're not going to give it up, they're going to keep persisting in their weapons program, bearing in mind they have a grade of a nuclear material that is only weapons grade, is not for a civil program, then what steps do you take ultimately? You're left with military action. The US acted last summer, we supported them, and we support them this time.
And we also heard that the Ayatollah Khomeini was killed in a strike. We don't know whether it was Israel or US who performed that strike. But what was your initial reaction to that news?
Well, look, I mean, this is war. This is what happens. A lot of reporting that it was Israel. As you say, no one knows definitively. There'll be a lot of things that get reported that unfortunately, you might say the fog of war, we won't know for certain for some time. I think it just shows how serious the situation is, and I reiterate my point, we need a Prime Minister gripping this firmly so the country support them and see whether one backs it or not, feels that they're in charge, whereas instead we have a Prime Minister who's flapping around, he's U-turned his position, it's not clear whether he even supports this. The Foreign Secretary has once again refused to answer the basic question of whether she supports this action. This is extraordinary. So we need clear, strong leadership today, protecting our personnel and citizens in the region and acting decisively at this difficult time.
αναχαιτίστηκαν και άλλα ύποπτα κείμενα. Κάποια λεπτά πριν από την έκρηξη.
Τα οποία και στο παρελθόν χρησιμοποιήθηκαν πάρα πολλές φορές σε υποστηρικτικές, όπως είπαν ήδη οι Άγγλοι, επιχειρήσεις εδώ στην περιοχή μας, στην γειτονιά μας. Οι πληροφορίες εδώ και πολλούς μήνες έκαναν λόγο για την παρουσία και Αμερικανών στρατιωτών και αεροπλάνων και δυνάμεων εδώ στο Ακροτήρι.